All right, in this video, I'm going to show you the absolute fastest way to become a published author while writing the minimum amount possible. I know a lot of you out there love the idea of becoming a published author, but the thought of sitting at your freaking keyboard for 200 hours to get the thing done is enough to cause you to pause the idea altogether. What I'm going to share in this video is what I learned from Brian Tracy, who is the best-selling author of over 50 books. I bought his premium book on how to write a book and become a published author. There is a tip in this course that is an absolute game changer. And we're also going to modernize Brian Tracy's approach for current AI tools and everything that you have at your disposal to get your book done the absolute fastest way possible, but still create a book that you're extremely proud of and that is of very high quality. This is the approach that I use to write books for my clients in a month or less. And no, I am not just taking AI content and copy pasting it and calling it a book. So Brian Tracy's course has so much good material in it. One of the things that I learned was something called the windshield wiper method, which means you're supposed to write in a way that alternates back and forth from left to right like a windshield wiper. And what that means in the terms of writing is you're alternating from left brain content to right brain content. Left brain content is when you teach stuff. Right brain content is when you tell stories, metaphors, examples. Humans learn much better and have a much better time learning when there's an equal amount of right and left brain content. It's the same reason you like to watch Netflix instead of like a documentary. We love stories. That one tip made my writing so much better. But here's the tip that I learned that matters for us today. Instead of writing a book, you can actually dictate a book. This means to speak your book. Brian Tracy went on to explain that he actually dictates all of his books. Brian actually walks around with one of these things, like a dictation recorder, which is just like this old school handheld thing. He talks into it. Obviously, they have iPhone apps for this now, and you can just use like the voice memos app on your phone, which is what I like to use. And Brian Tracy just either talks off the top of his head or using bullet points. And he goes on to say in his course, when you create your initial book chapters that way, it comes out in a more conversational tone, which is enjoyable for the reader. Then what he does is he has his assistant transcribe that content and dump it onto a Google Doc like this, where he can come in and modify this and write it into a book chapter. Now, transcription has been around forever. There's all these tools like rev.com that are really good at transcribing, but AI has just cut that industry at the knees. AI is basically a much more improved way to take content and transcribe or really transform it into a different shape. AI can literally rewrite something for you entirely. As you can see here on the screen, it will literally just dump out a completely rewritten chapter that honestly is fantastic. But we're going to talk about what you still need to do to AI's output to actually turn it into a respectable book chapter. But first, I want to share a couple of major ideas with you because I believe Brian Tracy's way is outdated and there is a new way based upon the tools we have available to us today. There are actually two better approaches to this that you can take to write your book in as little time as possible. Approach number one is to use your existing content for books. So if you're like my client, Joe McCall, who has a thriving coaching business, he's been posting content forever. You see, he's got 1,200 videos on his YouTube channel. He has more than that on his podcast. Joe's been in this game a long time. He is an absolute media master. And Joe has created so much good content around his niche, which is helping people flip vacant land and turn it into passive income. All of this material is an absolute gold mine that we were able to use to write Joe's book without him having to do anything because he already did the hard work of putting this content out in video form. Or for example, this is a blog post on my blog, and this is a perfect thing for me to put in my book. The number one self-publishing mistake to avoid. I'm working on a revised version of my book, Get Clients with a Book, right now. And I very well may just come to my blog and see what blog posts I can work into my book. So if you write a blog, or if you have an email newsletter or something like that, maybe you post regularly on LinkedIn like I do. Either way, you have already created the raw material that you can then transform into your book. By the way, if you already have an online course, that can be the perfect place to derive the material for your book, because the course is typically super organized and more in depth than other content. Like this is my course on how to buy rental properties long distance using the Burr method. I chucked this on Udemy and it's already got over 1,500 students. And I never wrote a book on how to buy rental properties. I used to be a coach in this space for a long time, but I just thought about it the other day. I was like, I could literally take this course and then use AI to help me rewrite this material into a book. I'm probably not going to do it because I've totally moved on from this space and my skills are not as sharp as they used to be. But I wish I would have done that when the time is right. And maybe if you've already put the hard work in to create a course, then you can duplicate that content into a book. By the way, I have created a prompt to help you with this. Say this was a YouTube video that you wanted to turn into a book chapter. What you want to do is get the browser extension called GLASP, GLASP, and then it will appear right here when you're on YouTube. All you have to do is open this and then click this little copy button, then go to Claude, which is my AI tool of choice. You simply paste in that transcript. It shows up right here. And then you come to the AI prompt that I have provided you here that I've spent a lot of time on that will help Claude write it in the right way. You copy this prompt and then come back to Claude and paste this in here and then hit go. As you can see, Claude is now writing a book chapter from Joe's YouTube video with the instructions that I have put in the prompt. Take a second to check out this prompt. It's pretty badass. It's got a lot of different frameworks to teach like the right way to tell stories. That windshield wiper thing we talked about earlier, it's already built in here. It really helps cover a lot of your bases and make your writing good. All right, so that's for someone who already has content. But if you do not already have content, then you will want to take approach number 2. And that is where you create content with the intent to repurpose that content as a book. Let's say you want to have a YouTube channel like Joe's or even like mine. And you are like, I want to publish, 20 or 30 YouTube videos in the next 3 months. All you have to do is just strategize, like just literally be like, I'm going to make these 20 videos and they will also double as the chapters in my book. I mean, how cool is that? By the end, when you've done that, you will have 20 YouTube videos that you can publish, which will actually grow your audience, which is critical for getting customers and everything that you want in this business. But then you'll also have the material to get your book 80 or 90% of the way done. So you'll get a lot more juice out of the fruit. If you don't like that idea, you can write newsletters, blog posts, articles, long form posts for Facebook or whatever, and turn those into your book chapters. All right, now I want to talk about how to use AI to turn content into books, because just what we've got here where I transcribed Joe's video, this, in my opinion, is not good enough. Like, I wrote him an entire book this way, but I combed through his book so many times and refined it and deleted and rewrote stuff that it's almost unrecognizable. And you don't have to take this step, but I personally do not believe that the output from AI is good enough. It doesn't feel real enough, human enough. You can kind of sniff it out that this is AI writing. And so it's important to actually go through it and rewrite it. The real magic in writing is honestly in the editing. It's through the refinement. It's in the distinction. It's through really thinking about where is the reader right now in their level of understanding? How can I hold them by the hand and gently walk them through a learning journey where they come out the other side transformed? And AI is just not good enough at doing that yet, especially when you're trying to write a whole book and you're stringing chapters together. AI will repeat a bunch of stuff that just doesn't make sense from one chapter to the next. And there was a time where I got overly excited about this idea of using AI to write books. I was just like, oh my gosh, I could just go to anyone's YouTube channel like Tony Robbins, and I could just take their videos and write books instantly because I've got this system. After using it for enough clients, I realized that that is just not a reality today. The role AI plays is it can take the content and chuck it on to the Google Doc for you, but then you have to do that hard work of cleaning it up. You have to carve your David like Michelangelo did when he carved his famous statue. AI does the equivalent of laying down that slab of marble and then even drawing a nice outline on the rock, and it hands you the chisel. But then you have to do the actual carving to make it into a masterpiece. Maybe one day that will change, but here's my thoughts, is that when we arrive at the day where AI can write a book that is as good as all of the best books that are on the market today, then that will allow every single person who has any level of content to have a book that's just as good as all the New York Times bestsellers. What happens then is the market becomes saturated with that level of book. So the game will be to use AI to get you as far along as you can, and then bring in your own expertise and your own discernment to take it that extra 20 or 30% to where it goes beyond an AI book and it becomes one of the absolute best books that's being published on the market today. So I do not think that there's going to be a time when AI just replaces writers altogether, because the writers will always be able to come in and take it to that next level. The writers will use AI to get it to that level initially, but the project will not be done. They will then come in and do whatever is necessary to stretch it that extra 20 or 30% to make it distinctive and to make it stand out. One last thought to consider is that books are made up of what? Content. YouTube videos are made up of what? Content. If I go to the coffee shop and I have a conversation with one of my friends about personal growth or business, I could technically record that and turn it into content. Newsletters, podcasts, it all consists of the same raw ingredient, which is content. It's critical that you learn to be strategic with how you capture your ideas and how you use them and how you repurpose them, and to essentially create a flywheel where you get a lot more bang for your buck. In fact, what am I showing you right now? This Google Doc, there is a chapter that my book needs, which is, you're learning about it in this YouTube video, which is obviously about how to take your existing or future content and use it to make the writing portion of your book so much easier. I knew I needed to write this chapter for my book, so I did. And now what am I doing? I'm filming a YouTube version of the chapter so I can get more out of it. I will strip the audio out of this video. I would chuck it on my podcast. This chapter, I'm going to post this as a blog post on my blog that I showed you earlier. And I'm also going to send it out as an email newsletter. And then, like I said, when the time comes to publish the next version of my book, this will go in it as a chapter. So if you remember approach number 2, we talked about creating content like a YouTube video with the intent to reuse it as a book. I'm essentially doing this at all times. I'm just creating content for a book with the intent to repurpose it as a YouTube video, podcast, newsletter, blog, etc. Now, if you want my help writing a book that's going to boost your brand and bring you customers, you have two options. The first option is to book a call with me. You can do that at brianowa.net/book. We'll see if it's a fit. And the second option would be to join my free Skool community where you can get a copy of my book, get clients with a book, and all the courses and training you'll need to do this on your own. That is free. I will put the link for that down in the description. Thank you so much for being here. I hope this video was helpful, and I will see you in the next one.